Get away from my daughter right now. You don't know what you're doing, screamed Alexandra Whitmore, the powerful CEO of the nation's biggest tech company, roughly shoving the new babysitter away from her 8-year-old daughter. Little Clara was having another terrible panic attack, breathing fast and shaking on the cold marble floor of their $15 million home. 3 famous doctors, 2 child mind specialists, and a whole private medical team had already tried to help her for the past 2 years, but nothing worked. "Mrs. Whitmore," said Nadia, the 34-year-old babysitter who had only started working there 3 days ago, speaking in a calm voice, "your daughter needs someone who gets what she's going through, not more people shouting at her." Alexandra rolled her eyes angrily. "You're just a babysitter. Don't give me your cheap self-help nonsense. Clara needs real doctors." Nadia stood perfectly still, watching the child struggle on the floor while her billionaire mother kept yelling. Her eyes showed a strange peace, like she had seen this exact thing before and knew exactly what would happen next. "Excuse me," she said softly, stepping around Alexandra and kneeling down beside Clara. Without saying anything, she started doing something none of the expensive experts had ever tried. She simply breathed along with the girl, matching her quick, scared breathing and slowly making it slower. "What on earth do you think you're doing?" Alexandra hissed, but her voice got quieter when she saw that Clara's crying was starting to calm down. In just 5 minutes, something that usually took hours to fix with strong medicine was getting better all by itself. Clara opened her eyes, and for the first time in weeks, there was no fear in them. "How?" Alexandra swallowed her pride, totally confused. Nadia helped Clara sit up, keeping her voice gentle and steady. "Sometimes the easiest answers are the ones that scare people who are used to making everything complicated." Alexandra stared at the babysitter's face for a long time, trying to understand how a woman without fancy college degrees had done in minutes what elite medical teams couldn't do in years. There was something about Nadia's way that suggested she had much deeper experiences than any job history could show. "Mommy," Clara whispered, still holding Nadia's hand. She made the scary feeling go away. For a moment, Alexandra Whitmore, a woman who controlled billions and commanded thousands of workers, felt completely lost in the simple beauty of that moment. If this story of change and amazing methods touched your heart, don't forget to follow along to find out how an unqualified babysitter was about to teach one of the most powerful women in the world that not all wisdom comes with a fancy diploma on the wall. In the days that came next, Alexandra watched Nadia with the suspicion of a boss used to controlling every part of her life. The babysitter had done something that dozens of expensive professionals had failed to do. Clara slept all night, ate without problems, and even more amazing, went to school without panic attacks. "This won't last," Alexandra muttered on the phone to her personal helper. "She's probably giving my daughter some weird herbs. I want you to dig deep into this woman's past." What Alexandra found in the reports made her even angrier. Nadia Williams didn't have a college degree, had worked in regular family homes, and worst of all, had grown up in public children's homes. "How can this person understand what a child like Clara needs?" she grumbled, throwing the papers onto her expensive wooden desk. Meanwhile, in the 15-square-meter children's room decorated by European designers, Clara laughed for the first time in months. Nadia had created a brave warrior game where breathing deeply was like putting on magical armor against scary thoughts. "My mom doesn't like you," Clara said innocently, arranging her books the way Nadia had taught her, a simple control trick that gave her a sense of power over her world. "I know," Nadia replied calmly, continuing to fold clothes. "Your mother is used to solving problems by buying expensive solutions. She doesn't understand that some things can't be bought." Alexandra picked that exact moment to walk into the room, her face stern. "Nadia, I need to talk to you right now." In the main office, looking out over the $2 million garden, Alexandra crossed her arms. "You're filling my daughter's head with your simple-minded ideas. Clara needs serious medical treatment, not childish games made up by someone with no training." Nadia stayed standing, her hands relaxed at her sides. "Mrs. Whitmore, may I ask, when was the last time you spent a whole hour just talking with Clara? No phone, no meetings, just the two of you?" Alexandra's face got hard. "Don't give me that cheap psychology talk. I work 16 hours a day to give Clara everything she needs. Everything except your presence. Nadia said quietly, so low that Alexandra almost didn't hear her. What did you say? The executive's voice got higher. I said Clara doesn't need more expensive doctors. She needs to feel safe. And children feel safe when they know that the adults around them know what they're doing. Alexandra laughed meanly. And you know what you're doing? A woman who grew up in a children's home is going to teach me how to take care of my own daughter? It was at that moment that something changed in Nadia's eyes. For just a second, Alexandra saw a depth that made her step back without meaning to. It wasn't anger or hurt. It was something much more disturbing, a complete understanding of the situation and total calm in the face of the storm. Growing up in a children's home taught me a few things that expensive universities don't teach, Nadia said, her voice staying calm. It taught me that anxious children usually have very real reasons to be anxious. And it taught me to spot when a problem isn't with a child, but with everything around her. Alexandra felt something uncomfortable growing in her stomach. Are you saying that I'm the problem? I'm saying that Clara is anxious because she feels like she has to be perfect to get attention. And I'm saying that 3 years of therapy didn't fix that because no one was looking at the real reason. The silence that followed was deafening. Alexandra Whitmore, used to intimidating CEOs of rival companies, found herself completely speechless in front of a babysitter who spoke with the authority of someone who truly understood her daughter. You're fired, she finally said, her voice shaking with barely controlled anger. Nadia nodded calmly. Clara knows this was coming. She'll get worse in the next 48 hours, and within a week, you'll be looking for your 5th therapist. But when that happens, I hope you remember this conversation. As Nadia walked toward the door, Alexandra shouted, Don't you dare lecture me on how to be a mother? Nadia stopped, turned slowly. I'm not lecturing you. I'm just making an observation. Clara has the most powerful mother in the country, but she feels like the most invisible child in the world. Each new attempt by Alexandra to put down Nadia only showed a quiet strength being fed by the very unfairness she was trying to create. What that privileged woman didn't know was that every act of meanness was writing her own future, not of defeat, but of a lesson that would change her life forever. 48 hours after Nadia's firing, just as she had predicted, Clara had her worst anxiety attack in months. Alexandra found her daughter hiding under her bed, breathing fast and repeating, Where's Nadia? Where's my magic armor? Clara, stop this nonsense, Alexandra shouted, trying to pull the child out. Nadia was just an employee. I've already hired Dr. Peterson, one of the best child psychologists in the country. But Clara refused to come out, screaming that she just wanted Nadia back. The crisis lasted 4 hours, ending only when Alexandra, desperate, called the doctor and allowed stronger sleeping medicine. Meanwhile, across town, Nadia was sitting in the simple living room of her apartment, typing carefully on her laptop. During her 3 days at the Whitmore mansion, she had done much more than just take care of Clara. She had watched, written down notes, and most importantly, listened. Are you sure about this? Asked Marcus, her younger brother, a journalism student, looking over her shoulder at the screen. Because if we're right about this information, I'm sure, Nadia replied calmly, showing him a series of screenshots and notes. Alexandra Whitmore built her tech empire by stealing ideas from smaller developers and using her money power to silence them in court. And Clara isn't naturally anxious. She's reacting to the toxic environment her own mother has created. Marcus nodded, impressed by how carefully organized the evidence was that his sister had gathered. How did you get all this in just 3 days? Nadia smiled for the first time since she'd been fired. Rich, proud people make the same mistake every time. They think employees are invisible. Alexandra made 3 damaging phone calls in front of me, left sensitive papers lying around the office, and treated her own daughter like a failing business project. Over the next week, Alexandra hired and fired 2 different therapists. Clara refused to work with either of them, constantly asking for Nadia and the Brave Warrior games. The anxiety attacks got worse. The medicine stopped working, and the girl started missing school again. This is unacceptable, Alexandra exploded during an emergency meeting with the medical team. My daughter cannot depend on an unqualified babysitter. There are scientific ways to handle this. Dr. Matthews, the most expensive child psychiatrist in the city, adjusted his glasses nervously. Mrs. Whitmore, sometimes children form specific connections that are hard to copy. Perhaps we should consider... Don't you dare suggest that I bring her back, Alexandra cut off his speech, slamming her hand on the marble table. I've controlled billions in negotiations. I'm not going to be beaten by an 8-year-old and a children's home babysitter. What Alexandra didn't know was that Nadia had spent the entire week researching and documenting not only the CEO's questionable business past, but also her harmful pattern as a mother. Conversations with former company workers, analysis of court cases, and even detailed observations of Clara's behavior showed a devastating picture. Look at this. Marcus showed Nadia the computer screen. I was able to confirm 3 of the stealing cases you documented. And there's more. She uses her own daughter as an excuse for unethical actions, claiming she's building a better future for Clara every time she crushes the competition. Nadia studied the documents with a serious look. Clara isn't suffering from general anxiety disorder. She's developing symptoms of trauma from living with someone who treats love like a performance and approval like money. The turning point came when Alexandra, in her growing desperation, decided to publicly talk about her victory over the incompetent babysitter in an interview with a famous business magazine. Some people think that money and education don't matter, she told a reporter, but I've proven that professional methods always beat amateur guessing when it comes to a child's well-being. The interview was published under the headline, Billionaire CEO Explains How Business Discipline Solves Even Family Problems. Alexandra shared the article on all her social media accounts, adding, Lesson learned. Never let emotions compromise important decisions. Effective leadership business, Nadia read the entire article, then slowly closed her laptop. Now she's given me exactly what I needed. What are we going to do? Asked Marcus, watching the growing determination in his sister's eyes. We're going to show Alexandra Whitmore that underestimating people is the most expensive mistake anyone can make, replied Nadia, already picking up the phone. And we're going to do it using her own pride as a weapon. As she dialed the number she had memorized, Nadia smiled as she thought of Clara. Soon the girl would have back not only her magical armor against anxiety, but also a mother who would finally understand that being powerful does not mean having the right to hurt those who are weaker. It was when everyone laughed at her firing that something unexpected began to take shape. Not only in the simple apartment where Nadia carefully planned her response, but mainly in the determined look that now shone with an intensity that would make Alexandra Whitmore realize that she had awakened a force she could not control, even with all her money. The call came on Monday morning as Alexandra was reviewing quarterly reports in her office with a view of the whole city. Ms. Whitmore, this is Jennifer Walsh from Business Weekly magazine. We have received some very interesting information about her business practices and would like a statement. Alexandra frowned, annoyed by the interruption. What kind of information? We have documented evidence that her company has used face recognition programs specifically programmed to discriminate against Black candidates in hiring processes. We have also received recordings of meetings where she allows spying on employees and... The reporter's voice hesitated. The use of her own daughter's private medical data for unauthorized advertising campaigns. Alexandra's blood ran cold. That's completely ridiculous. Who is making these crazy accusations? The evidence came from a source who has worked closely with her family recently. Nadia Williams provided extensive documentation, including audio recordings of conversations that took place at her home. Alexandra felt her legs go weak. During the 3 days that Nadia had been in her home, she had made multiple compromising phone calls, left confidential documents lying around, and worse still, discussed questionable business strategies without any caution. After all, who would pay attention to a mere babysitter? She was recording, Alexandra stammered, remembering specific conversations about manipulating diversity data to appear more inclusive, using Clara's medical condition as justification for unethical policies, and instructions to sabotage smaller competitors. We have 3 hours and 47 minutes of audio material, Ms. Whitmore, including a particularly interesting conversation where you instruct her legal team to find a way to sue that pretentious babysitter for lies, even though you knew she had helped her daughter. Business Weekly publishes in an hour, the reporter said, checking her laptop. The Washington Post wants an exclusive interview with you tomorrow. And there's more. 5 former Whitmore Tech employees have already come forward publicly in support of the allegations. Nadia nodded calmly, typing a final message on her phone. Over the past 2 weeks, while Clara suffered without her care, she had carefully built a web of evidence that would transform Alexandra Whitmore from respected CEO to national example of everything that was wrong with greedy capitalism. The most brilliant part, Marcus continued admiringly, was using her own proud interview as a trigger. When she said publicly that professional methods always beat amateur hunches, she basically confessed that she put ego over her own daughter's well-being. Alexandra's phone rang again. This time it was her PR director, panic clear in his voice. Alexandra, we need to talk now. The company's stock has dropped 23% in the last hour. The board is calling an emergency meeting, and there are at least 6 major investors threatening to pull their money. And guess who is now being interviewed live on CNN about how billionaires use the suffering of their own daughters as a shield for discriminatory practices? Alexandra turned on the television and saw Nadia sitting calmly in front of the cameras, her peaceful manner contrasting with the storm she had unleashed. Clara does not suffer from anxiety due to genetic or brain causes, Nadia explained to the interviewer. She develops symptoms because she lives in an environment where love depends on performance, where her own mother treats her like a business project that is failing. The interviewer leaned forward. And how did you discover this in just 3 days? When you grow up in children's homes, you learn to recognize when a child is being emotionally neglected, even when the neglectors have billions in the bank, Nadia replied. Clara didn't need more medication or expensive therapists. She needed someone who saw her as a person, not an extension of her mother's ego. Alexandra turned off the television violently, her hands shaking with rage and despair. In less than 24 hours, her reputation, built over decades, was being systematically torn down by a woman she had completely underestimated. When her assistant announced that Clara was having another severe meltdown, the worst in weeks, Alexandra realized the full extent of her defeat. She hadn't just lost her business reputation. She had lost the trust of her own daughter, who now refused to even look at her. "Mom," Clara whispered through her tears when Alexandra tried to approach her. "Why did you send away the only person who made me feel safe?" It was in that moment, staring into the frightened eyes of her 8-year-old daughter, that Alexandra Whitmore finally understood that she had lost the only thing that truly mattered. And all because of a pride that had prevented her from recognizing that an unqualified babysitter understood her daughter better than she did. As revelations piled up and masks fell one by one, a question echoed through corporate hallways and national headlines. Was it possible that someone used to buying solutions to every problem could finally learn that some wounds can only be healed with humility, genuine presence, and the courage to admit that being wrong is the first step toward doing what is right? 3 months after the devastating exposé, Alexandra Whitmore sat in a 2-bedroom rental apartment, a far cry from the $15 million mansion she had lost when investors pulled their funding and the board voted for her immediate removal from the company. The Department of Justice had opened a criminal investigation into systematic discrimination, tax evasion, and misuse of personal data, including her own daughter's medical information. Clara, who now lived in shared custody with her father, who had divorced Alexandra years earlier, was thriving in a way that surprised all the experts. Without the constant pressure to be perfect for a control-obsessed mother, her anxiety attacks had virtually disappeared. At her new school, where no one knew about her privileged past, she was simply an 8-year-old girl who loved to draw and make friends. "Mommy," Clara said during one of Alexandra's supervised visits, "Nadia was right. I didn't need medication. I just needed someone to really listen to me." Alexandra swallowed hard, watching her daughter play quietly with simple plastic dolls, a stark contrast to the expensive educational toys she used to buy her. "Clara, I'm so sorry for everything." "I know, Mom," the girl replied without resentment. "Nadia said that sometimes adults forget what it's like to be a child. She said that you must have felt very lonely when you were little too." It was at that moment that Alexandra realized the depth of what she had lost. Nadia had not only exposed her unethical practices, she had revealed that a billionaire mother could offer her daughter everything except the one thing that really mattered: genuine emotional presence. Meanwhile, Nadia had become a national figure. Her testimony before Congress about systematic discrimination in tech companies resulted in significant legislative changes. Universities competed for her presence at lectures on child psychology and social justice. Publishers offered her million-dollar contracts to write about her experience. "You've become exactly what you always wanted to be," Marcus commented, watching his sister review job offers in her new home, modest but comfortable, located in a diverse neighborhood where Clara sometimes came to visit on weekends. "No," Nadia corrected gently, looking out the window where Clara played in the yard with other neighborhood children. "I became what the world needs me to be. Alexandra taught me something important. When you have power, you can use it to protect or to destroy. She chose to destroy people who threatened her ego. I chose to protect a child who needed someone to see her." The most dramatic transformation, however, came 3 years later when Alexandra, after losing all her legal resources, facing devastating government fines, and seeing former employees sue her for discrimination, finally agreed to get real therapy. Not for Clara, but for herself. "Dr. Patterson," Alexandra said during a particularly difficult session, "I built a billion-dollar empire, commanded thousands of people, but a babysitter with no college degree completely defeated me. How is that possible?" The therapist, a black woman in her 50s, with decades of experience treating powerful executives, smiled gently. "Alexandra, power without wisdom is just bullying in disguise. Nadia didn't defeat you. She simply showed the world who you really were when no one was paying attention. But I wanted to give Clara everything." "Except yourself," the doctor interrupted. "You confused providing things with motherly love. Nadia understood that your daughter didn't need more things. She needed to be seen, heard, and accepted exactly as she was." Alexandra spent the next 2 years slowly rebuilding her relationship with Clara. This time, without trying to control or shape her, she learned to sit on the floor and play, to listen without judging, to be present without an agenda. She got a job as a consultant at a small tech company, earning a fraction of what she used to make, but finding satisfaction in honest work that didn't exploit anyone. During this time, Clara continued to visit Nadia regularly. The former babysitter had become not only a mentor but a complementary mother figure who offered something Alexandra was still learning to give: unconditional acceptance. "Nadia," Clara asked during a walk in the park, "do you forgive my mother?" Nadia stopped walking, considering the question carefully. "Clara, forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting what happened. It means choosing not to let someone's anger poison your own heart. Your mother hurt me, but the pain she caused me has turned into strength to help other people. And more importantly, she's learning to be a better mother to you." 5 years after Alexandra Whitmore's downfall, a new federal law was passed, informally known as the Nadia Act, requiring technology companies to undergo regular diversity audits and face criminal penalties for systematic discrimination. Nadia, now with her own institute dedicated to children's welfare, was invited to the signing ceremony at the White House. In the audience, sitting in a simple chair at the back of the auditorium, was Alexandra. She had lost everything: money, power, influence. But she had gained something she never knew she needed: the ability to love her daughter unconditionally and to look in the mirror without feeling ashamed of who she saw reflected back at her. When Nadia took the podium to speak, her eyes met Alexandra's for a brief moment. There was no triumph there, no resentment, just the silent recognition of two women who had traveled very different paths to arrive at the same understanding. That true power does not come from controlling others, but from transforming oneself. "This law," Nadia said into the microphone, "does not exist to punish those who discriminate, but to protect those who need protection. It was not born out of hatred, but out of love. Love for children like Clara, who deserve to grow up in a world where their value is not determined by the color of their skin, their zip code, or the size of their parents' bank account." After the ceremony, Alexandra approached hesitantly. "Nadia, I never had a chance to say—" "Alexandra," Nadia interrupted gently, "you don't owe me an apology. You owe yourself the continuation of this journey of growth, and you owe Clara the promise that you will never again allow power to turn into arrogance." "What if I fail again?" Nadia smiled, the same serenity that she had displayed years earlier when she was unfairly fired. "Then you'll try again, because that's what people who truly love do. They don't give up when the going gets tough." 2 years later, on her 13th birthday, Clara celebrated with a simple party in the backyard of the house where Alexandra now lived, an ordinary house in an ordinary neighborhood, where she had learned to find happiness in things money can't buy. Nadia was there, as was Clara's father, a few school friends, and even Marcus, who had become a kind of honorary uncle. As she watched Clara blow out the candles on the homemade cake she had baked with her own hands, Alexandra reflected on the journey. She had lost billions, but she had gained a daughter. She had lost power over others, but she had found power over herself. More importantly, she had learned that the best revenge against those who try to destroy you is not to destroy them back, but to become the version of yourself they never could have imagined you would become. "Make a wish, sweetheart," Alexandra whispered, watching Clara close her eyes in front of the candles. Clara opened her eyes and smiled. "I already have everything I wished for. I wish that all children in the world have someone like Nadia in their life, and I wish that all mothers learn what you've learned." That night, after everyone had left, Alexandra and Nadia washed the dishes together. Two women who had faced each other as enemies and found, in the hardest lesson possible, the path to something much more valuable. The understanding that true strength does not come from putting down others, but from lifting up those who need to be lifted up. Nadia dried her hands and got ready to leave. "Alexandra, can I say something?" "Of course. Clara is proud of the mother you've become. And if you want my opinion, so am I." It was only after Nadia had left that Alexandra allowed the tears to fall. Not tears of regret for what she had lost, but tears of gratitude for what she had found. An unqualified babysitter had taught her the most valuable lesson of her life, that true success is not measured by what you can buy, but by the love you can give freely. Alexandra and Nadia's story became a case study in business schools, not as an example of corporate failure, but as a demonstration that it is never too late to choose to be better. And Clara, now a confident teenager planning to study child psychology, often tells her friends that she had two mothers, one who gave her everything she could buy and one who taught her everything that really matters. If this story of transformation, forgiveness, and the power of second chances touched your heart, follow along for more stories that prove that the greatest victories don't come from defeating enemies, but from turning enmity into wisdom, trauma into strength, and prejudice into understanding.